You know that awful feeling?
Yeah.
That split second when a car right beside you just suddenly hooks right?
Oh, yeah. Every city cyclist knows that heart-stopping moment.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, a huge danger for urban riders.
Hmm.
The right hook collision, basically where a vehicle going your way turns right straight across your path.
And it's not just intersections, is it? It happens at driveways, parking lot exits,
Yeah.
really anywhere a car can make that right turn.
Exactly. And the consequences, they can be really severe for cyclists. We're talking broken bones, serious head injuries.
Yeah, potentially life-altering stuff. It's
Yeah.
no small thing.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to arm you with real actionable knowledge, strategies you can actually use to ride safer and hopefully feel more confident out there on the city streets.
Let's do it.
And just a reminder, this deep dive is brought to you by the Be Safe, Be Seen podcast, sponsored by Reflectos. They make that great high visibility gear for cyclists and runners.
Okay, so let's really get into the weeds here. The right hook. What are the classic scenarios we see?
Well, think about a car overtaking you, maybe a bit fast, and then bam, they immediately cut right to turn into a street or driveway.
Right, without much warning.
Or you're riding alongside a car, approaching an intersection, maybe in a bike lane, maybe not, and suddenly they just turn right across you.
Yeah, the parallel travel scenario.
Yeah.
Very common.
And like you said, driveways, parking lots, especially places where maybe the bike lane keeps going straight, but the car needs to cross it to get in.
And we have to stress, these aren't just like minor bumps usually. A cyclist is just so exposed in that situation, the potential for serious injury is massive.
It really is. And the stats, well, they paint a picture. Specific right hook numbers are tricky to pin down sometimes, but NHTSA data from 2016 showed 71% of fatal bike crashes happened in urban areas.
71%. Wow.
And 30% of all fatal bike crashes were at intersections. So that really highlights these danger zones we're talking about.
And there was that Canadian study too, right? It found something like 27% of collisions between bikes and cars happened when the cyclist was just going straight.
27%. Just riding straight ahead. That really drives it home, doesn't it?
It does. It shows that even when you feel like you're doing everything correctly, following the path, this specific type of crash is a major, major threat.
Okay, so we know what it is and that it's dangerous and common. Let's dig into the why. Why do these right hooks happen so frequently? What's going on?
Well, it's usually a mix of things, isn't it? Driver factors, maybe some cyclist vulnerability aspects, and the environment itself.
Let's start with the driver's side.
Okay. The big one is often just failure to see the cyclist. And it's not always about, a physical blind spot on the car.
Right, it's that looked but didn't see thing.
Exactly. Drivers are often scanning for bigger things, other cars, trucks.
Yeah.
A cyclist, especially if they're slightly behind or in the peripheral vision, might not fully register. It's almost like selective attention. Our brains filter information.
That's a huge point. You absolutely cannot assume a driver sees you just because you're there.
Definitely not. Then there's misjudging speed and distance. A driver might glance, see a cyclist, but think they're further back or slower than they are and turn anyway.
Thinking they have time when they really don't.
Precisely. And simply failing to yield the right-of-way. Sometimes drivers just don't recognize or maybe disregard that the cyclist legally has the right to proceed straight through.
Okay, what else?
Well, just not looking properly, inadequate surveillance, we call it. Driver inattention, distractions are a massive problem everywhere now.
Phones, radios, coffee.
Yep. Forgetting or just not bothering to signal their turn. Aggressive driving, being in a rush, and making improper right turns like cutting the corner too sharp, swinging into a bike lane without checking first.
Or not merging into the bike lane before the turn when they're supposed to.
Exactly. Like in California, you've got vehicle code sections, 21.717 and 2100, that basically say drivers should merge into the bike lane within a certain distance before making a right turn. Not doing that is a direct cause of these hooks.
So a lot on the driver's awareness and how they execute the turn. Okay, now let's carefully consider the cyclist's perspective. Not about blame, but about understanding where we might be inadvertently vulnerable.
Right. It's about recognizing high-risk situations so you can avoid them. Riding in a driver's blind spot is a big one, especially near bigger vehicles like trucks or buses, or as you come up to an intersection.
Makes sense.
And this is critical. Passing vehicles on the right, especially when you're at or very near an intersection, if that car is slowing down or stopped, just don't do it.
Because if they turn right.
You're toast. You're putting yourself directly in the line of fire. It's one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Okay, noted. What else?
Making assumptions. Assuming the driver has seen you, that's a risky bet. Also, maybe misjudging what a driver's about to do. And sometimes, frankly, riding too fast for the conditions, not giving yourself enough time to react if a car that just passed you suddenly brakes and turns.
And the road itself, the environment plays a part too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Poorly designed intersections where things are confusing, or bike lanes that just end abruptly right before a busy junction.
Yeah, those are stressful.
Low visibility twilight, nighttime, bad weather, obstructed views from things like parked cars, overgrown trees or bushes, and just complex situations, lots of traffic, maybe oncoming cars turning left, pedestrians stepping out. It all adds to the cognitive load for drivers.
And in those busy city environments, maybe drivers are just so focused on, like, the bus next to them that they completely miss the cyclist on their right.
Exactly. They prioritize the bigger perceived threats.
Okay, this gives us a really clear, if somewhat sobering, picture of the risks. It seems obvious that we as cyclists need to be really proactive. So let's talk solutions. Defensive riding. Where do we start?
I'd say the absolute foundation is strategic lane positioning. Where you choose to ride in the lane makes a massive difference to your safety.
Okay, let's unpack that. We hear the term taking the lane. What does that actually mean in practice?
Taking the lane simply means positioning yourself more towards the center of the traffic lane, rather than hugging the curb or the edge.
And when should cyclists be doing this?
Primarily when you're approaching intersections. Also in lanes that are too narrow for a car to safely pass you within the same lane, when you need to move out to avoid the door zone of parked cars. And sometimes when your speed is pretty close to the speed of the traffic around you.
Why is taking the lane, which might feel a bit assertive to some, so crucial for preventing right hooks specifically?
Well, a few reasons. First, it makes you way more visible to drivers behind you, and even drivers ahead who might be looking in their mirrors. But crucially for right hooks, you are physically occupying the space a right-turning driver might try to squeeze into.
Ah, I see. You're blocking that path.
Essentially, yes. You're making it impossible for them to make that turn from alongside you without actually changing lanes properly to get around you first. It sends a clear signal. This space is taken.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
how do you actually do it? You can't just swerve out, right?
No, definitely not. It needs to be deliberate and communicative. First step, always, is scan behind you. Use a mirror if you have one, or do a good shoulder check. See what traffic is doing.
Assess the situation.
Right. Then signal your intention. Usually a left arm signal to show you're moving laterally towards the center. Try to make eye contact with a driver behind you if you can through their windshield or mirror. Then move smoothly and decisively into that central position. No sudden jerky movements.
Smooth and predictable. Got it. Now, intersections are clearly the hot spots. What are the best practices there?
Okay, the general rule is be in the rightmost lane that's going in your direction. So if you're going straight and there are multiple lanes going straight, you want the rightmost of those lanes.
Not necessarily the absolute rightmost lane on the road if that's a dedicated right turn lane.
Exactly. That's a key point with bike lanes too. If a bike lane ends before the intersection, you need to merge early and assertively into the adjacent through lane. Don't wait until the last second.
What if the bike lane continues, but it's to the right of a right turn only lane and you want to go straight?
That's a really dangerous design, unfortunately. In that situation, you should seriously consider leaving the bike lane well before the intersection and positioning yourself in the main through traffic lane. Otherwise, you risk getting hooked by someone turning right from the lane to your left.
That takes some confidence, but I can see why it's safer. What about when you're stopped at a red light in a bike lane?
If you can, try to position yourself slightly forward and maybe leave a little space to your right within the bike lane. This can sometimes allow right-turning cars to complete their turn beside you, reducing the chance they'll cut you off when the light goes green.
Okay. And the golden rule you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely bears repeating. Never, ever, ever pass vehicles on the right when you're at or near an intersection, especially if they look like they're slowing down or, heaven forbid, have their right turn signal on. Just don't do it. Hang back.
Okay. What about sidewalks? Sometimes it feels safer, but you hear it's discouraged. Why in this context?
Sidewalk riding makes you practically invisible to drivers, especially at driveways and intersections. They just aren't looking for something moving bike speed coming off a sidewalk. If you must use a sidewalk where it's legal, you have to treat every single driveway and street crossing like a major intersection. Slow way down, look carefully at both ways, make absolutely sure it's clear.
Right. And you mentioned the door zone earlier, too.
Yes. Always stay at least 3, preferably 4 feet away from parked cars. Even if that means riding outside a marked bike lane. A suddenly opened car door can knock you right into the path of traffic, including a turning vehicle.
So positioning is job one. Let's talk visibility.
Mhm.
Making absolutely sure we're seen seems like, well, a no-brainer.
It absolutely is. Remember, a primary reason for right hooks is drivers saying, I didn't see them. So you need to make yourself as unmissable as possible.
Lights, obviously.
Lights are non-negotiable. Bright white front light, powerful red rear light. And crucially, use them during the day too, not just at night. Flashing modes can really grab attention in daylight.
Day running lights for bikes. Makes sense.
And don't forget reflectors. Front, rear, wheels, pedals, they all help, especially from side angles. Reflective tape or elements on your clothing, your backpack, your ankles, particularly important for being seen by drivers who are slightly behind and to the side, the ones most likely to hook you.
And clothing choice.
Definitely. Bright fluorescent colors are best for daytime visibility. For night or low light, you need retroreflective materials, the kind that shine brightly when light hits them. Think high V's yellow, orange, lime green during the day, and strips of reflective material for the night. Be a moving beacon.
Become unmissable. Okay, so we're positioned well, we're highly visible. What about actively telling drivers what we're planning to do? Communication.
Super important. We don't have brake lights or big turn signals like cars, so hand signals are our main tool. You need to know them and use them consistently.
Let's quickly recap them.
Sure. Left turn is left arm straight out, horizontal. Right turn, you can either do the traditional left arm bent up at the elbow or just point with your right arm straight out horizontally. It's often clear. And for stopping or slowing, it's the left arm extended downwards, palm facing back.
And when should you signal?
Signal early. Give drivers time to see and react. Aim for about 100 feet before your turn or stop. Make the signal clear and deliberate. Hold it for a few seconds if you can safely do so while maintaining control.
What if holding the signal feels wobbly?
Safety first. If holding the signal compromises your stability, a brief, clear signal is much better than losing control. One hand always needs to be ready for the brakes and steering.
Okay, hand signals are key for turns and stops. Are there other ways to communicate, maybe more subtle ones?
Yes, absolutely. Eye contact is incredibly powerful, though not always possible. But try to make eye contact with drivers, especially at intersections or before you make a move like changing lane position. It's a way to seek confirmation that they've actually registered your presence.
Get that flicker of recognition.
Exactly. And beyond that, cultivate an assertive but not aggressive road presence. Ride predictably. Use that clear lane positioning we talked about. Even doing a very deliberate shoulder check before you move sideways communicates intention. Your whole roadway body language matters. Maintaining a steady pedal stroke as you proceed through an intersection signals you're committed to going straight. Make your intentions obvious.
So, position, visibility, communication, what's the next layer in this defensive shield?
It's all about anticipation and constant situational awareness. Developing that kind of sixth sense on the bike.
How do you do that?
Constant scanning. You can't just stare straight ahead. You need 360-degree awareness. What's ahead, what's beside you, what's coming up behind. Use your ears too. Learn to read driver behavior. Watch for clues. Is that car slowing down when there's nothing in front of it? Is the driver turning their head? Are the wheels starting to angle toward the turn?
Assume they might turn into any gap.
Pretty much. Assume the unexpected. Assume they haven't seen you. Assume they might make a mistake. And critically, manage your speed, especially approaching intersections. Never just barrel through, even on a green light. Give yourself space and time to react and stop if needed.
What about relative speed? If a car passes you, then slows.
Be hyper-vigilant then. That's a huge red flag for an impending right turn right in front of you. Back off. Get ready to brake.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about intersections, some places have laws like the Idaho stop or Delaware yield, where cyclists can treat stop signs as yields.
But you still need to be careful, right?
Extremely careful.
Yeah.
You absolutely need to know your local laws. But even where it's legal, you must yield to any cross traffic and ensure it's completely safe before proceeding. Safety always trumps convenience.
Okay, so we're doing everything right, positioned well, visible, communicating, anticipating. But sometimes things still go wrong in that split second. Are there emergency maneuvers we should know?
Yes, though hopefully you never need them. If a right hook is happening right now and you don't have time or space to brake fully, one option is the emergency quick turn.
Turning with the car?
Yes, sharply turning your handlebars right in the same direction the car is turning. The idea is to try and avoid the direct impact, maybe turning it into more of a glancing blow or avoiding it altogether. But this takes practice in a safe place, like an empty parking lot. It's not intuitive.
What else?
Emergency braking, obviously. Know how to use both brakes firmly and smoothly without locking up the wheels, which causes a skid. Practice that too. And in a very, very rare last-ditch scenario, if there's zero room to brake or turn right, but maybe a clear path to the left of the turning car,
Pass on the left.
it's highly risky and situational. You'd have to slow rapidly and be absolutely certain the path is clear. It's really a desperation move. The hierarchy is always prevent the situation first, then adjust speed and position, and only use emergency maneuvers as the absolute final resort.
Wow, okay. That's a lot for us as cyclists to manage. It really underscores how active we need to be.
It does. And while our actions are vital, we also have to talk about how the roads themselves are designed. Infrastructure plays a massive role.
Right. Let's shift to that. How can better road design help prevent these right hooks?
Bike lane design at intersections is absolutely critical. Standard bike lanes often switch from solid to dashed lines near intersections.
Yeah, what's that about?
That's supposed to indicate a mixing zone, where cars intending to turn right should merge into the bike lane before making the turn again, like those California laws state.
Ah, so the dashed lines mean merge here if turning.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
Buffered bike lanes, with that extra painted space, help discourage cars from drifting in too easily. Using green paint in conflict zones, like through the intersection, makes the bike lane much more visible to drivers.
And sharrows, those painted bike symbols with arrows.
Sharrows indicate it's a shared lane, guiding cyclists to ride a bit further out from the curb, improving their visibility and position, especially where a full bike lane isn't feasible. But the big problems are those designs we mentioned, bike lanes to the right of right turn lanes, or lanes that just vanish.
Those need fixing.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Infrastructure should guide cyclists left of right turning traffic, and clear markings are needed to show drivers where and when to merge into a bike lane for a turn, reinforcing those laws like CVC 21717 and 202100.
Okay, what about things like bike boxes? We see those more now. How do they help?
Bike boxes are those painted areas at the very front of a traffic lane at a stoplight, right in front of where the cars stop.
Between the cars and the crosswalk.
Exactly. At a red light, cyclists can filter forward through stop traffic and wait in the box. This makes them super visible to the drivers waiting behind them, especially the ones in the rightmost lane who might be planning to turn right.
So when the light turns green, the cyclist is already ahead and clear of the turning path.
Precisely. It reduces that immediate right hook risk right at the start of the green light. They also help cyclists making left turns and can improve pedestrian safety, especially if combined with no turn on red signs. Cyclists just need to use them correctly. Filter forward, wait in the box, proceed on green.
That seems like a pretty effective, relatively simple solution. What about more complex designs like protected intersections?
Protected intersections are kind of the gold standard, often based on Dutch designs. They aim to physically separate bikes, pedestrians, and cars as much as possible through the intersection.
How do they prevent right hooks specifically?
Several ways. They often have corner refuge islands, little raised islands at the corners. These force turning cars to take a wider, slower turn, physically separating them from the bike path that often bends around the island.
So cars slow down and have more space.
Right. They also use setback crossings, meaning the bike and pedestrian crossings are moved back a bit from the main car intersection. This drastically improves sightlines. Drivers turning right can more easily see cyclists approaching from the side before starting their turn.
Better visibility again?
Yep. And forward stop lines for bikes, similar to bike boxes, put cyclists ahead of cars at a red light. Plus, sometimes they use separate signal phases. Maybe cyclists and pedestrians get a leading green interval, a few seconds head start before the cars get their green light.
Taking the conflict out of the timing.
Exactly. By using space, visibility, and timing, protected intersections try to design out the danger of the right hook almost entirely.
That's fascinating. It shows how much engineering can contribute. Okay, this has been incredibly comprehensive. To wrap things up, let's boil it down. What are the absolute core defensive principles cyclists need to live by?
Okay, the essentials are be visible lights, reflectors, bright clothes, be predictable, ride consistently, signal clearly and early, be aware, scan constantly, anticipate driver actions, expect the unexpected, communicate, actively use those signals, try for eye contact, control your space, position yourself strategically, take the lane when needed for safety, manage your speed, especially at junctions, be ready to stop. And finally, know your rights in the law, but always prioritize your safety above asserting your rights.
Excellent summary. And you put together a quick checklist too, right? Can we run through the key points?
Sure. Think of it in phases. Pre-ride. Check your bike, make sure your lights work, wear visible gear, know your route.
Yeah.
General riding. Constant scanning, stay out of the door zone, ride predictably. Intersection, approach this is critical. Scan early, anticipate turns, decide your lane position, take the lane if necessary, signal, control your speed, and that golden rule. Never pass on the right.
Never on the right at intersections. Got it.
Navigating through. Maintain your lane position, keep scanning, be ready for anything. Post-intersection, scan again before you move back to the right or change position.
That checklist is a great mental walkthrough for every intersection approach.
Exactly. It's about making these actions habitual. Understanding these principles, consciously applying them, it really can make a huge difference to your safety and just your confidence riding in the city.
Absolutely. This has been so valuable. Thank you for breaking down such a critical topic for urban cyclists. Remember, everyone, knowledge really is power here. It builds confidence and helps keep us all safer out there. Please share this deep dive with other cyclists you know.
And just a final reminder that this deep dive was brought to you by the Be Safe, Be Seen podcast, sponsored by Reflectos. Check out their high-visibility cycling and running gear. It really can help you put that Be Visible principle into practice.
Definitely worth a look. Join us next time as we dive deep into another important topic. Until then, ride safe and be seen.